Shit.
Okay, so go get it out of your system.
God.
Right, okay then. So, exciting times. After a lot of talking, a lot of videos, and you're finally back on the water. What I said to Tristan Lee a few minutes ago is, I mean, as you know, Dubai's been on the water a couple of months. So they're further down the line. You're back on the water now, so hopefully this is going to start making some sense. And the UK is going to be way behind because we won't be back on the water in dragon boats for a month or 2 months. So the UK paddlers will have to catch up. But like I say, those people who, you know, there's no restriction on single boats. So if people want to paddle, they can. So that's fine. We're going to crack on anyway. And as I said all along, and I mean this, absolutely, GB paddling, Gina will probably reinforce this to a certain extent. It's very UK centric. I'm not UK centric. So if we end up with a Senior A GB team, which is solely from Hong Kong and Dubai, that's the way it is. If you're, so, you know, fine. We're going, it's a meritocracy and we go from there. I'm going to hand over in a minute to Lee to talk about the session this weekend in catch, but hopefully a few of you have had the chance to have a look at those
You're muted, right?
videos I sent out. Could you just go on mute?
Huh?
Are you muted?
So if you've got some background noise, if your kids are paddlers, then come and join in. Fantastic. So no worries. Thank you for that. So
Kids with tech support, Tim.
even better, even better. But before we get on to that, have you? I sent it out last night. You may not have seen it. I sent out a document which was basically the selection tests. Now I always say this a few times. Selection is over the whole piece. And the reason we do this is because over the years, having done this is my 8th campaign now, we've lost a number of great paddlers just because we've only relied on one day of selection. And it could happen, you could turn up, so David, John, anybody, Karen could turn up and have a bad day and perform badly on the day. So what I like to do is you're assessed, if you like, over your coursework, which is your returns and that sort of stuff, working the boat, that sort of stuff. It's all objective, as well as a single selection day. We've got to run a single selection day, but because different people have different access to single boats in different locations, we've got 4 tests. You can have a look at it in your own time. There's O1 or OC1 test, there's an ergo test, there's a gym test, and there's a single a dragon boat pull. We do it from a moving boat rather than a static boat. Have a look at it. Questions about that. And what we'll do, we'll stage. Basically, you're required to do 3 of those tests. One of them will have to be either paddling in a boat or on the ergo, but that's it, right? Simple as that. The gym tests have come about that because we asked people basically to contribute, and people have contributed their favourite or the most effective test they've come up with, and we've just combined those and thought about them being accessible as well. So that's where we are. But other stuff we'll be doing during the course of the workup campaign as well. So if you're very keen on pull-ups, don't worry, there'll be pull-ups in the workup, yeah, if you like pull-ups. So enough about that. Okay, as I say, any questions about that? Well, we're also anticipating very soon Tom publishing a strength and conditioning program, which leads into another challenge. I'm not going to steal his thunder. He's leading on that. And the idea is that we end up dovetailing all the 3 main locations into one. So we're all doing the same program and then all doing the same challenge. We did one separately last weekend. Right. Okay. So today, I hand over to Lee. Catch.
Sorry, I missed that. I can't hear. Say that again. What did you say?
Let me just lead you in. Let me lead you in. So catch. Open to the floor. What is the catch? How important is it? Is it important? Does it matter if we miss a few? What do we think?
Yeah, it definitely matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would we say it's not that important? Would we say it's fundamentally important? Would we say it's the crucial part of the whole stroke? Or what's your perception on that? Stunned silence.
It's absolutely fundamental.
It is absolutely fundamental. It's one part of the stroke that if you miss it, you're not going to get it back. So the foundation, the absolutely fundamental part of any good paddle stroke, whatever craft you're paddling, is the catch. You'll hear different terminology. People talk about hooking water, catching water, moving the boat past the paddle. Great. but I think it's fundamental, and most people would agree that what you catch, you have to keep all the way through. So whatever water you hook, whatever force you apply, and it's force applied to the paddle rather than weight. Force has mass and direction, okay? Then you don't just push off the front and lose it. So you've got to grab that water and move it all the way through the power phase of the power stroke. If you think about it, 60 strokes a minute, that's 0.6 of a second. So you need to be working the blade every part of that 0.6 of a second or whatever rate you're paddling at. Lee, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Tell us why.
Sorry, I was going over what I wanted to say. So
Go.
can I just come in and go through how I think that things are probably going to work on Saturday when you come down. So the way I see it, right, everything that Tim's going on about is obviously 100% relevant, right? And we all know it. The concept that I want to sort of push forward when we actually get down to Thai Tam on Saturday is to actually think about the things that you probably wouldn't actually go through or have thought about in too much detail in your own clubs, which means, and every club's got their own coach doing their own thing and their slightly different style of paddling. Be it all look the same, can be very different in the water and out the water. So the kind of things that I want to introduce initially, even before we get to the catch, is how we actually use our bodies as a momentum vehicle for pushing the boat forward. So, and that all ties in, and I may have said this a few times to other people before, but that all ties in with like using all of your body. That's, your feet and ankles up to your hip bone, your hips, right? Obviously that means the whole of your legs up through the core of your body into your chest and shoulders. And then you're using your arms as peripherals to actually create a connection with the water, right? So with that in mind, what we're going to do is like use our weight to like literally throw the catch forward, or throw our, I'm using the word catch as in the whole of the catch from the exit to the front before we even get to the catch. And that means hinging from the waist, taking your whole body and head with chest up, head up, and creating that forward momentum. So you will actually feel the boat go forward. And we've all done this. We've sat in a boat, maybe some of you done rocking drills where you rock forward, you rock back. If you rock forward, the boat goes forward. If you've got 20 people doing it in time, I can take 3 people, or I can take an OC2 out and rock with 2 people only. And if you're a split second out, you're not going forward, all right? You're fighting each other and you haven't even taken a paddle yet. So with 20 people, it's very difficult. And just getting 20 people to rock forward at the same time seems to be quite difficult. But that's the kind of stuff we need to manage. And once we've conquered that, with that stroke going forward and boat momentum going forward, then what follows is then our stroke coming forward into the catch. And then we can go into all the techniques of the catch. Once we grab water or hold water or all the other words associated with a catch, then we start to catapult the boat forward. So we've got like 2 things happening all in one stroke, all with forward momentum, forward direction. And that accounts, I think we've doubled our speed and doubled our momentum initially without just doing a static catch, as I call it. So, and if you don't know what I mean by static, if you are sitting on your bench in your dragon boat and you just move your arms, or you move your shoulders and your arms, or your head, shoulders and arms, which isn't your whole core, not using your legs, that to me is a static catch. Your weight is dead weight because you haven't moved. You're just dead weight. So what happens is all your power gets transferred into the blade through the water and you rip the water. You haven't actually connected with the water. And that's the mistake that most people make with a catch, is that they haven't actually got the boat moving. And I know this not through Dragon Boat. I know this through single crafts, no matter what it is, okay? It's a concept and it's one that works. Now, we've made that work in other boats, in dragon boats, obviously, and we call it different things. We make it work in different ways. And I'm just trying to change it slightly, or change it to try and make it so that people understand it. We've called it the G spot. Don't want to go there, but we've done it in our boats, and it's like, it's a place where you're not necessarily using aggression and power to make the boat move. You're using momentum, which is the key word. And then going from momentum, you have to go into rhythm. And rhythm is keeping the momentum going, and then getting your stroke to match the rhythm, and then match the catch, with the water and the connection with the water. And then all this is driven through a cycle, which is a sequence, which, if you take one part out of that sequence, be it leg drive, be it body thrusting down through the water, or wherever you want to go with each part of the stroke, or even in the recovery phase and exit, if you break that, then you are going to slow the boat down. You're going to lose that momentum. You're going to lose that rhythm. If you lose the rhythm in the boat with 20 guys, then it's not good. And that's where you feel, it's all these things that when they're just slightly out, and there's a lot of things there, that's when a boat feels sticky. It's not just water. It could be water making the boat sticky, but 9 times out of 10, it's you. All right. It's almost guaranteed it's you as a person. All right. And you're out of synchronization, you're out of rhythm, which people probably sum up as out of time. All right. So therefore, you need to understand, when people say you're out of time, you need to know which part of the timing you're out as an individual and as a crew, both. Right. So there's all these components that we want to sort of break down, do it bit by bit and build it up bit by bit. So we shake out some of the sort of legacies of your old sort of, with your clubs and your coaching and training, and it's not taking it away. It's just that I need to break it down so that we can match it in one boat. That's all. And then build that cycle, build that rhythm, build that momentum, and then so we come back as one unit or one engine. And we've all heard those words before, but we don't actually know what it means. All right, so we need to actually figure out what that is, which I've just actually told you. All right, so it's components, building blocks, before we've even got to the catch. All right, well, we can go through all those bits individually, but I find that they're all very technical. And when we start getting technical, we start closing our heads to actually what we're doing. So I believe in rhythm first, rhythm, and then the technique. We can pick that after. We can look at that on screen, and we can deal with it, because they're just little things: elbows up, elbows down, shoulders here, heads here. They're easy things to pick out. What's difficult is your body motion, fluidity within the boat, and your stroke. All right, so that's kind of a big picture looking down before we've even got to actual technique or actual drills to enforce that. All right, so I got not a lot, but a few drills. You've all heard of them and all done them before, which I will do. I do when I see the way you paddle, we'll put them in there. Okay, and there are things like one-handed drill, skimming, or whatever you want to call it. Things that would just connect you, the blade, and the water together, that create synchronization and rhythm. That's kind of where I want to lead when we go out on Saturday. We've got training to do, by all means. All right, Tim's give us a plan. We'll go through that, but we'll also go through some, depends how the boat looks and feels, but we'll go through some drills that we'll chuck out there according to what it looks like. So Tim, is that all right with you?
No, absolutely. And what's really important is, I mean, I'm both Lee in the UK, Lee in Hong Kong, and Nikki in Dubai. I put out a training plan, but as you all know from any session you've done, you don't just go from A through to Z. If you haven't quite got S, then you stick on that point. So it's really important that the local coach, has the latitude. So it's not just a conveyor belt, it's a chain of events, which brings me on to a point. I'm going to ask you a question, Lee, which is great. We all hear terms like rhythm and reach, connectivity, propulsion. And propulsion engine is a really good analogy, because when you think about it, in your engine, it's got a succession of things that happen in order for the boat, the vehicle, whatever, to go forward. So this chain of events that we're talking about, Lee, what is the chain of events? So you're talking about this coming out the back and setting up. What are you looking to see on Saturday?
Well, first of all, and I see people do this in a dragon boat. They rock forward and back. They do it in an outrigger, and I'm not absolutely sure whether they know why they're doing it. All right. So we'll explain why we're doing it, which I kind of just did, and then we can go from there into like, basically, if you was to start, and I'm not saying that stroke starts at the back or it starts at the front, okay, but if we say we start at the exit going forward, you've already taken your head and chest and core forward. So basically your stroke, you're dragging the blade behind, for instance, right? And don't like hit me with, oh, you drag, all right? It's just the blade comes after. So you're actually going forward, head, chest from the recovery before the blade's actually exited out the back. And then, so that's your momentum forward. And then it's like what we call a big swing forward, and it's coming after. So you're chucking forward the blades into a grabbing position. If you just pick it up and put it in, there's zero momentum. There's zero sort of fluidity in that thing. Let's say from the front of the stroke, we've powered off now. So we're in the mid section and the blade starts to float back, right? It's not under pressure. It's just floating back, right? At that point, I'm actually beginning to go forward. And that going forward is chest up, head up. And then the blade exits and goes into a forward position just before the catch, and then plant or set. And we set the blade, and then we start to drive. And when we drive, we're not driving or we're not pulling back. We are going into a pole vault position. And this is evident by leg drive. Leg drive then kicks in against the catch once the blade is in, and it's not always 100% in. It's a graduation of in from the immediate catch. I'll come back to that later. And then when I say pole vault, you are pushing your leg becomes resistance, like your top hand becomes resistance against the water. It's not power, it's resistance. There's a difference. If you power it, you break the water. If you resist it, you're grabbing and pole vaulting up. Your leg comes in because what I want, and this is another aspect, is that you must keep your back straight and head up and chest up whilst you're doing this. Otherwise, you're not lifting the boat. And we always talk about lifting the boat, but are we lifting the boat in our stroke? I don't see it. Not this boat, but other boats that go out on. I don't see the lift. And it's because people aren't, people are kind of like, and I might be one of them actually, because I hunch, but like people tend to drive down like this and they're hunched over. So they're shortening the stroke and they're chucking weight on the blade going down with the blade. Whereas what you really want to be doing, well, my stroke would be, is that if you get the resistance on between your foot and your blade with a straight back, you will go more into a pole vault up. Like you're sitting up, okay, as opposed to a drive down. That in effect will lift the boat. If we lift the boat, again, we've saved ourselves a lot of effort, and we should rise the boat a lot quicker, which is our goal, okay? And so all these things are coming in. So that's kind of like the whole, I think that's almost the whole picture. I mean, and then there's the actual drive, or, and then we start using words. I want to start using different words. I mean, I will divert back to old school, but I think the words we use can change the way we think about what's actually going on, right, within the stroke. But do you see what I'm talking about, as in going over as opposed to coming up, right? All boats should come up on your power phase, not go down. Otherwise, you don't get a lift, and we're after lift. Okay.
Just a question on that. A question to the house. What you've demonstrated is head up, back straight, neutral spine position, same as if you're pushing weights in the gym. You don't push weights like that, do you, in a gym? So, what's your understanding? This is to the group, of this concept of coming forward or throwing your weight forward. What's the point of that, and what's the point of timing? Just give me some ideas. Just tell me what you understand by that. Why is timing important? Anybody and everybody. We talk about it. We talk about it a lot. We talk about timing, teamwork, technique, power transmission. But why is timing important? Darren, tell us. You're looking quizzical. Studious.
So in my view, timing is important. One, because as Lee just said, if everybody in the boat is moving at the same time, at the same rhythm, with the same momentum, then you've got you're limiting your resistance caused by the people in the boat. And therefore you're limiting the amount of drag coming back. Okay. And I think timing gives you your rhythm. I would use both words to mean the same thing in my sense of understanding.
Okay. Is there a difference? Yeah.
And then you've got the moment that you enter the water, which is also your time with the other's time, and the moment you all put the pressure on the entry, and once you've got the blade embedded and all together, right? So that's timing. Any millisecond off, the movement is lost. You lose the inertia that you've gained in the rhythm if you're all like going backwards and forwards together. It's not just backwards and forwards, it's a feeling, right? It's the Tahitian way, as I've understood it from the brothers that we were paddling with here.
Okay, Guy. Any other, thanks for that. Any other take on that? Before I hand over back to Lee, any other take on your understanding of timing? What I'm hearing is what Darren's saying and Lee is it's all about the catch, if you like. So the timing is making the catch, blade fully buried, blade under load on the front end, yeah? Okay. Most people would agree with that.
Timing also gives you boat stability as well.
Right.
If not just the timing of everybody getting the catch together, it's the whole stroke. If the boat is out of time or applying pressure at different times through the stroke, you'll get a lack of stability in the boat and rocking backwards and forward, side to side.
Okay, Dave, another question. Is there a difference between timing and phasing? And this is to David's point. Timing and phasing. Is it the same thing or is it different? What do I mean? Right.
Go on, I'll let you answer your own question.
No, you tell me first. Tell me first. Because what's really important?
Phasing as you can all, but if you're not applying pressure or in time, then you even though you look in time, you're not in time. If that makes sense.
Right. Example. So here's Lee. Here's me. We're paddling in time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can be in time and out of phase. Yeah. And if I'm going long on the back, so Lee's paddling away there, that's a paddle stroke there. I'm doing this, I'm going long on the back and I'm hitting the catch at the same time, but I'm doing it in a different way. So this idea that the concept that Lee is talking about.
That was my point, yeah.
Right, so that's phase. It's sort of the same thing. Did you say that's exactly what you meant? I may be talking nonsense. Has anybody else come across this before?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
think phasing is actually a bigger issue than timing. I think we're probably all experienced enough to know to get pretty good timing. I think from a couple of years ago, and also with Buzz, it's always the phasing that I think knocks the boat out.
I think, and you tend to get it more, all due respect to ladies crews, you tend to get it more in open crews. You will tend to get it more in male crews because you get this testosterone stuff where blokes are fighting each other. It's supposed to be in the same boat. Ladies crew, in my experience, it may be limited experience, they tend to work out the teaming bit a bit more in the main, not always in the main. Okay, so for that phasing, Lee's talking about the concept of moving boat forward, the marginal gains of bodies moving forward together and getting some propulsion out of that. This is where phasing is important. The other thing is that's really important is if somebody's long on the back, then what they're actually doing is trying to keep up all the time. And if they're just trying to catch up all the time, they're not putting sufficient effort and energy into the catch. So by being in time and in phase, the boat is more balanced, which means the steerer has to do less steering, which means there's less resistance. And if it's more balanced, it will run smoother and it won't rock so much. Lee, back to you. Just picking up on, because I know you're going to talk a bit about blending, so I'm sort of leading into that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm glad you used the word phase and described it. Now I know what you mean by it. So, and that all makes sense. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that all makes sense. I can see, yeah, where people are either short out the back or long out the back and playing catch up all the time. I mean, all those things, there's so many reasons why, and there are ways to do it. Most of those reasons I find are purely because they haven't got a catch to begin with. And when I say catch to begin with, what I really mean is they can't hold water at the front.
Yeah.
So they're skipping the front and going too fast in the water. So they're not holding anything. And then they're coming out the back and then they're catching up going forward. And there's a whole dimension of things that people are doing just because they don't hold water at the front.
Yeah.
All right. So if you go back to your original question at the very beginning about is the catch, how important is the catch? I think that if you know how to hold water on the catch, it actually eliminates most of the shit that goes down anywhere else in the stroke. Sorry. All right. So that works for me from what I've seen in most people and the way they paddle. If you're missing the catch to any degree, and it's usually a degree because they do make boats go forward, and that's where you get all the different percentages of people's stroke and how much of the power phase they're going to have and how much catch up they're going to be playing with. So that's why when I go back and I talk about rhythm and momentum, if your body is in time with the momentum of the boat, i.e. 90% of the boat is in rhythm and momentum, then you should automatically fit into it. That's why people rock in the boat. Even if, like, say, you've got two guys that aren't paddling because they're doing nothing, they've been told to stop paddling. So sometimes they tend to rock because if you don't rock, they become static in the boat and they're just jolting in the boat. You know, so you might have one guy left over and he's sitting at the back. It's like, don't paddle, you just balance today, you ballast. And he's like sitting there and he's like dunk, dunk, and the whole boat's going, you know, because he's out of sync with the boat. And that's what I mean by rhythm momentum. And those two factors tied up with the catch is going to make everything else flow. And it's going to make that water time be even, which will make your power phase even. Again, power phase is another subject. There's all different subjects we can go into. But does that answer your question with timing? So, I mean, even timing, you know, I might not even want to use the word timing because I don't think people understand. It's too broad. Yeah. It's too broad a term at this stage to say timing. Once we're in the boat and we've understood momentum and rhythm, we can say, right, that's timing. So if your timing's out, sort your bloody lives out, guys. Get with it. Get your catch. Get ready, guys. Right, that's what's going to happen.
I'm with John in terms of, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, we talk about various terminology, but I think phasing is actually marginally, they're all important, marginally more important than timing. Question once more again, before I lead back to Lee, and I just don't want to jump in too much here. When you've got a fairly slow boat or a heavy boat, it's quite easy to make a catch. It's a bit like when you go out in heavy water in your single boat. In waves, actually, it's quite easy, or into wind, it's easy, you feel the force, don't you? But the faster the boat, is a catch easier or harder?
For me.
Anybody?
Just as hard for me.
I mean, the faster the boat is going, especially in a crew boat with 20 paddlers, it's going to be harder to make a catch. And that's why, once again, it's relatively easy when you've got 8 in the boat to get a catch because you can feel it every step of the way. But when you've got a fast boat with 20 people paddling, especially at the back of the boat, it's very hard to get a catch. And that's why we have to spend a lot of time working it through, understanding what's going on. Because basically you're putting in the stroke seats to a certain extent, it's a little bit easier actually. If you're at the middle to the back of a boat and the boat's going at 17, 18, 19 kph, and you've got to get a catch on that, that's a difficult thing. It takes a lot of effort and energy. Would you agree with that, Lee?
Yeah, but like the way I figure it is, once the boat's up to speed, or any boat for this matter, once the boat's moving, it's like people saying, I think people might think it's easier. I don't think it's easy. I think it's just as hard, if not harder.
Yeah.
But it's a different kind of hard, right? It's not like your first stroke of a dragon boat hard. It's a different power source coming from your body. That's where your gym work starts to setting in. It's like you're maintaining a power source on the stroke, but the boat is now fluid. Everybody in the boat is working together, and it feels easier, but it's harder with regards to you still putting effort and power in, because all the time you want that boat to go faster. And so, but you're not actually breaking the water. You're still running with the water in your power phase in the stroke, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So, I mean, it's still hard work. I mean, when you see top boats, you know, be it Hawaiian teams, Tahitian teams, going back to outrigger, sorry, you know, they make it look easy, but believe me, they are humping, putting it in. They train. They're in the gym every day, every morning. I mean, they're putting the work in, like more than you could ever believe, because they're using all their power sources there. They just make it look easy because the speed of the boat is running. You know, if a boat's not running, it's just horrible. It's like you can put even more effort into a boat that's not running, that hasn't got momentum, and it's going to feel even worse, because then you're just fighting all the elements that are against you. I don't mean outside elements, I mean elements within the boat, stroke elements. Again, that goes back to rhythm and timing.
Rhythm and reach. I don't use that term so much these days, perhaps I should. Did I hear you speaking up for gym work there, Lee? Did I mishear you? Did you actually say, were you actually encouraging people to get to the gym? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, that is where it comes in. Trust me, I know, although I'm the world's worst at getting in the gym, right? That is, and I know they're components that I miss too. I mean, I should be doing a lot of that stuff, and I intend to. But yeah, it's very important for sure.
So what? I'm just as open question. Okay, gym work. We talk about that. But the good thing about gym work is doing an exercise correctly. There's a procession of events, isn't it? It's a chain reaction, same sort of thing. It relates directly to, if you can do simple things and get it in the right progression, then we take you into a boat which is a bit more complex and try and build it up as you go along. So all of it has its place. All of it has its place. And we're not going to be asking you to do anything that is irrelevant just for the hell of it. So that's really important as well. Blending. So any thoughts on blending? We mentioned that before, Lee. So what is that exactly?
Well, I mean, again, if you use the word blending, that's like the whole story. It's like if you say, like, let's blend, you've got to go back to this rhythm, because and it's making sure that every individual now is one, and that's, you know, and that's blend.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I'm just playing on words. For me, it's pretty much the same thing. If you've got momentum in your person with connected to the boat, so like that's using leg drive and your core in a certain position, be it rocking the boat, being movement in the boat. If everybody's got that together, that's blend. If you know, and that includes your catch, your power phase, and your release, yeah. Okay, or your exit, and then going forward.
Okay.
You know, but you can use any word for that. It doesn't have to be, you know, maybe you can use blend for something else. What's your take on it?
Anybody? No, exactly that. It's all part of the piece, all part of the same thing. But I'm going to just come in with another question. So we've talked about the importance of catch. We've talked about timing, phasing, that sort of stuff. Whatever terminology we use, hooking water, grabbing water, what you catch, you keep, all these things, all relevant, different ways of saying the same thing. What's the best way? This is an open question. What is the best way to kill your catch? So you've got a big grab on the front. What's the best way to lose it? Because you see this so often at all sorts of levels. So everyone can come forward. They come forward together in time, in phase. They grab water. They feel some pressure, some force on the blade, initiate it. and then they lose it. And basically, halfway through their power phase, the boat is paddling them. They're no longer paddling the boat. So from your observations in your cruise, what's the best way to kill the catch? Or do you all paddle with a full catch all the way through? If you do, great.
Pushing your top hand forward.
Pushing it forwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts? I mean, where are you pivoting? Are you pivoting? Is it that, or is it that? What is it? When could you, Gareth, give us a demonstrate what you mean by that? When you say push the top hand forwards.
Exactly what you just did. Going negative to getting a negative blade angle too soon.
Right. So the fault.
Yes.
The fault is pushing the top hand forward.
Yes.
So the pivot point is here. So let me just ask you a general question. This movement here, okay? Bad at the bottom, but where do we want the wrist? Have you thought about where you want your wrist at the top?
Yeah, it should not be broken. It should be firm.
Right. So either neutral, if I call that neutral,
Yeah.
or maybe even extended. If that's extended, that's flexed. Yeah. What happens if I roll my wrist? Because this happens so often.
Well, your blade angle is going to go negative too soon.
Right. Okay. Anyone experience that? People talk about.
I've seen it. Yeah.
People talk about slippage. Yeah, they talk about
like
slippage.
pushing your top hand over the bottom hand. You know, that whether it be the wrist or whether it's just the mechanics of their arms because they're using arms, or basic angle of the blade on attack of catch. All those things are going to affect the catch. Because the blade, instead of going in at an angle, it's automatic. You go in at an angle. Some people pulls outside the water and then they come in. They either drop in or they're negative coming in because the top hand's pushing over the top. Yeah, all those things are stuff that's going to interfere with their catch, for sure. Let
me just the cover point you've mentioned there. You might have seen that drill we talk about. You may do it on Saturday. The front end pause, okay, or the advanced pause. So you're suspended just above the catch with the blade, whatever it's 45 degrees, bottom hand in front of the top hand, just before it enters the water. Okay, and that's your pause position there. What happens immediately after that? What's the next movement? Is it drop it in? Is it push it further in? Is it just don't know? Or what do we do?
You're going into the mechanics of the catch now, aren't you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Right, the way I describe it, and it's not necessarily how it actually happens, but if you take swimming, right, as in crawl, if that's the water, you touch the water, and from there, you go in and forward and down. Okay, so as a drill, sometimes I get people, or I tell them anyway, to go in forward. Like you get the blade in and actually go forward, which they can't physically do, but you mentally get them to go forward just to stop them from immediately coming back. So you go in, forward, and hold on water. Because in swimming, that's what you do as well, right? You do that, and and then you start to compress down, which is your lift up. That's your pole vault, right? That's your and by the time you've got your blade full, actually, you're over the top of that blade. You've gone. So the blade hasn't moved. And so when you talk about you going past the blade, that's what you've done. The blade has actually stayed where it is, and you've just gone past it. And then it just filters out the back. It releases itself. It will just pop.
Okay. Karen, having just swum 16K around Hong Kong, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree. With swimming, you do enter and you reach in order to get a really good catch on the water, and you're engaging your shoulder, and your hip is ready as well for the whole of the movement, for all of your body to actually force yourself forward.
Yeah, it's such a great analogy, isn't it? When you think about it, I think when we spoke about it before, you say you're swimming, you don't actually just, you think about you swim with the shoulders, we actually engage in the hip, this big muscle here, serratus anterior, and this whole concept of rhythm and reach. And when you swim, I'm not a big long distance swimmer, you don't just drop it in, do you? You catch it and then you pull. And that's really what Lee's talking about. And you see that very often, that people will hold there, and as soon as it's in the water, they drop the head and then they kill the catch straight away. So that's number one way to kill the catch. Second way is to do the old push-pull. So the fulcrum's in the middle of the paddle rather than pulling through. And the worst thing you see is people just allow that wrist to roll. And that's one of the reasons, as Lou was saying, that you get that slippage in the water. And slippage in the water is basically destroying the catch. Yeah. So at that point, the boat's actually paddling you, or you may not be contributing as much as you think you are. So you're maybe just wheel spinning as opposed to paddling. And that's one of the things that really, when we talk about the marginal gain side of things, the little bits here, same as moving the body to move the boat forward, if that can give us a quarter, a half, 2 kph forward momentum that is there for the taking, then we're going to take it rather than let it go. Yeah, Simon, would you agree? Any thoughts on that? Let's bring you in. He's there.
Sorry, I'm on my phone as well as my laptop.
What's your take on catch?
Yeah, I think the other thing maybe that hasn't been mentioned is like when you come down too soon and you cause that cavitation, that kind of air pocket ahead of the paddle. That's kind of common mistake we often see. Like we often try and spear the water forward and then start pulling. But yeah, to try to avoid the cavitation in front of the paddle, which I think is another way of killing the catch, right?
I mean, if you ever see a paddle under the water, say you do some stuff in the swimming pool, there is a degree of cavitation. You're going to take water and you're going to separate the air from the water and all the physics side of things. So you're trying to reduce that.
Minimize it, right?
You still hear this. Spear the fish is a kayaking term. The paddles are different. They're configured differently, and it doesn't really work with a dragon boat paddle. Apart from a very small ridge in the more modern paddles, you've got to drop it and then drive it first. Get it in first. What Lee's talking about, that concept of pole vaulting, it's called a box, isn't it? They run down the track, the runway, whatever they call it, stick the pole in the box, and then they go up over. So that's a better analogy. Once it's locked, lock it, load it. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions on any part of that so far? We're on 45 minutes, so I want to leave a bit of time for questions anyway. So anything we've said, you're saying no, completely wrong, completely right, or any questions? Because you really need to understand what we're talking about. Because if you don't understand it, then you're not going to do it. Any thoughts from anybody? Okay. Stunned silence. Ask any questions at any time. Lee, rocking, propulsion, chain reaction. So what's your take on top hand, wrists, that sort of stuff? So from the outrigging side of things, and any other reasons why your blade might slip in the water that you can add or maybe clarify?
I think if anybody on here tonight doesn't know what to do with their wrist, they shouldn't be on here.
Okay.
And that's about as far as I'll go with that.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, absolutely. But it's one of those things.
Really, no. Get off if you don't know what to do with your wrist and the blade.
The thing about technical, anything technical, and this is exactly what Lee's saying, but in another word, if you like. Technical is for your whole paddling career, isn't it? And what tends to happen is the more you paddle, to a certain extent, then you'll pick up different sort of habits and this sort of stuff. And very often, I do it all the time. You keep coming back to fundamentals. So I'm not teaching you to suck eggs. And if somebody can tell me how to suck an egg, I did a video on it once, but I'm not going to bore you with it. But there is a definite technique to doing it. But you keep coming back to it and keep reminding and revising. I always go back to periodically the most basic drills because you forget what you're doing. And I'm sure it's the same in swimming, to get to re-examine, make more efficient, then you go back to the originals, go back, confirm, and then move on again. Okay, that's nearly 40 minutes then. So let's just leave, if there's any questions on any of that, any other points you want to cover, Lee, or we can open up for questions.
Let's open up for questions.
Okay, fine. So basically last little bit, any questions from anybody about anything Dragon Boat related? We could talk about that. Anything else? Meaning of life? No, just paddling. Any questions? Any thoughts? No? Everyone happy?
When are the trials? I forgot to ask.
Right. Well, now you're on the water. Once we get a confirmed competition, which hopefully will be in the next year, I think they're waiting for the confirmation on the Olympics, then it's discussion between me and you and the administrators about how long people need to work up. Because what I'm quite keen to do is get those done as soon as possible, but I don't want to disadvantage people.
Right.
Yeah, so really, probably if it opens up as it's according to, then I think probably late June to early July. But like I say, once we've seen people on the water, we've seen how much they're paddling, etc., then we'll bring it forward from there. Yeah, because what we need to do is give people sufficient time to prepare and sufficient time to people start working as a team, so we can talk about more the blending and the seat pairs. That sort of time, I would imagine. Yeah.
Right, cool.
So it's a Goldilocks thing. It's not now you're back on the water. It's not too early, not too late. But I'm thinking that at the moment. Yeah. Okay.
Right, cool.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Any other questions from anybody about anything?
Quick one. You mentioned that obviously the gym, the returns towards selection. At the moment, yeah, I'm trying to, there's a few of us are going for the Prem team as well, and they're also considering the gym work we do towards selection, right? So there's obviously quite a build-up of five workouts effectively per week for both the Prem and the senior team. Is there kind of some compensation or some kind of, we take that into account somehow, or what's the guidance to? Can we afford to have a ratio of half and half? Or?
Yeah, I mean, this is if somebody is working and doing 5 sessions a week, then all credit to you for doing that. But when it comes to different squads, I mean, there's as far as I'm concerned, there's only one advocate for joined up team working. I've said this before, and it's me. For some reason, the way GB has developed over the years is they like silo working. That presents a bit of a problem for anybody who's deciding between one squad and another. So to a certain extent, that's going to be really for you to manage your time for best effect. But, I mean, we've had conversations by email anyway. I know what you're doing. I'll need to see some evidence, or we'll need to see some evidence of what we're aiming towards. And then if you're going for 2 squads, then you're going to have to make a decision sooner or later, and you be the decider of that. But yeah, if you're putting stuff into us and doing our returns, I appreciate different stuff as well. So you'll find that balance. But I know you're working, so I'm not concerned about it.
What time will your car start?
7:30, 8:30, 8:30.
Which caused me a little bit of concern.
Huh?
Will you be tired at that time?
Eric,
I am tired.
Go on mute, please. Thanks, mate.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize
No
that.
worries,
Sorry
no
about that.
So, where was I? Lost my thread. So basically, selection is all about providing evidence for inclusion, not evidence for exclusion. It's that way round. So with your schedule, then it's a case of you deciding and discussing with me offline or whatever. But you see, I need to see some evidence, obviously. But I appreciate if you've got a conflict there, then you're going to have to resolve that conflict. I can't resolve that conflict for you, so you'll have to decide sooner or later which squad you're going for, and good luck with that.
So one other thing, with the Prem team, we're trying to almost randomise the training times at the weekends to not conflict with club training.
Right.
Is it possible to do the same for this as well?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why we have local coordinators, because I mean, for exactly that. But it comes down to and it's a good question actually, it's a balance between it shouldn't conflict with too many club teams. I'm assuming the clubs will be using the boats at their regular club time. So we'll just have to liaise with Lee and Nest coordinators and work out what is the time that suits most people. But yes, deconfliction is the way ahead. But there's going to be some conflict some way down the line. Of course there is, because it's a limited resource. So we'll try and minimise that as much as possible. But there's always some conflict, and it may well be that the Premier crew, Premier squad, is training at the same time we are. So that's a choice you've got to make, as and when.
Oh, it's more around the club trains like at 4 p.m. on a Saturday every week, right? So if we can avoid sometimes not training at that time slot, yeah, I'm sure the clubs have other regular
absolutely,
slots,
right? Absolutely, and that's a very key, strong consideration, because obviously we want to maximise the people in the boat and maximise your opportunity to paddle. But that availability of boats, availability of the coach, Lee, etc., is all part of the mix. But yes, we certainly won't be deliberately conflicting with anybody else. That's in nobody's interest at all. Yeah, of course. Okay, great question actually. But if there is occasional conflict,
guys, can I just say that? Sorry, just to interrupt you. There was a Google form that went out and asked everybody what their clubs were and what times they trained. So if you fill that in, we'll know what your club is and when you train. And so we'll try our best to weave in between your clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for that, Ness.
Does that help?
Okay, yeah, brilliant.
So yeah, so basically fill the form on. It was sent on. Puss sent it on WhatsApp. Fill it in. The more information you give us, the easier it is for us to coordinate when we can have our training times.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Ness. Can't put it any better than that. Brilliant. Thank you for interrupting. Okay, brilliant.
Sorry.
No, fine. Any other brilliant? Any other points? Last couple of minutes. Any other questions?
Yeah, if I could ask, please. It's about the training, really. I'm trying to sort of picture what a week, an ideal week would look like regarding time out in the water and number of times in the gym, and sort of, and then your workouts as well, and just trying to get a good balance. Maybe someone that's been through this process before can say what their week looked like, just to give me an idea, please.
Right. Very soon, hopefully this week, next couple of days, there'll be a strength conditioning program from Tom. So that's one. If you already have a strength conditioning program or you're doing CrossFit, then we're not going to expect you to do 2 sessions. Yeah. What we will ask you to do is just to get in contact so we can deconflict it. The sessions I'm going to set you are essentially 1 a week. You can do it in 40 minutes per week. So it's one session per week. Yeah. That will feed into the GB sessions. Okay, so that's done in consultation with Lee as well. So realistically, let me just ask a question to answer your question. Lee and Ness, are you how many times are you anticipating the GB squad working together per month in an average month?
Well, like, as in once a week.
Once a week. So you're thinking about once a week.
If possible, yeah. I mean, it's we need to get the first one out, and we're still waiting for people to come back to us about clubs and boats and the usual stuff, just to be able to get out on the water. So at the moment, we'll have a better feedback this week, hopefully.
Okay.
And then if we can, obviously, it'd be better to get out at least once a week.
Okay. So best case scenario, I'd say, just taking on board what Lee's just said there regarding if we end up with a GB session per week, that would be ideal. They're doing 2 in Dubai. I don't think that's probably achievable. So from the GB side of things, we'd be looking at 2 or 3 strength and conditioning sessions, which is Tom's program coming out. 1 return, which will be either a paddling return, an ergo return, or a gym return, which is the weekly returns, and 1 GB paddling session. So that would be the ideal situation. but I am aware other people have got other stuff they're doing as well. So if there's a conflict, then that's the point at which you get in contact. So for example, if you're training for particular events and it's a swimming event, a sprint event, and it's completely in pace with what we're doing, then we can have that conversation. So I appreciate not everyone can get out every day. So that will be best case scenario. The strength and condition, which will probably be 2 or 3 sessions a week, depending on what Tom comes up with. I'll be looking at return and 1 GB training session, which should be sufficient. Yeah, but let's.
That's helpful, because then you've got your own club time, you know, twice on the water as well. So yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. But if there's a problem with it, then get in contact and we can discuss it, because it's like Simon's talking about. If you're doing lots of other stuff, that's not going to be a problem. In fact, very often we're saying to probably do a bit less. My main concern is getting on to people who I've not heard from and getting them to submit stuff. That tends to be the problem. I don't think with your swimming, I don't think that's going to be a problem with you in terms of keeping yourself fit and flexible. Okay, brilliant. Okay. Any other, before we close, any other points? And I'll try and keep it to an hour this time rather than let you run on. Happy? Okay. If there's no, then so last comment from you then, Lee.
No, good. It's good to see a lot of faces this week.
Great.
And look forward to seeing even more on Saturday. So
Brilliant.
if you know anybody that hasn't signed up yet, please ask them to sign up. It'd be great.
Brilliant. Okay. I think as it picks up and you see what is on offer, I'm quietly optimistic that it will grow as we go on. That's exactly what happened in Dubai. No reason why it shouldn't happen in Hong Kong as well. Okay, let's leave it there. Thank you very much for your comments. Thank you very much for your contribution, and have a great session at the weekend. And I'm glad you're back on the water. Okay, see you later. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.